Thank you very much, Barb. I have the distinct honor this evening to introduce our keynote speaker, Pablo De Greve. But before I do that, I just want to take a brief moment to commend the organizers, Barb Fry and the Human Rights Program here at the University of Minnesota, and Alejandro Baer and the Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies also here at the university, for organizing this really important and timely conference, Truth, Trials, and Memory. And also to congratulate you for assembling this truly amazing, world-class roster of experts who are here. It would be a notable achievement to bring such a distinguished group of individuals together anywhere, but to do this here at this time is truly remarkable. And although you didn't quite fit this in before the snow started to fly, you might have them captive now. This conference is also, I think, a wonderful example of the scope, of the depth, of the collaboration, the collaborative nature of the human rights community here in Minnesota. And in the organization I have the privilege to lead, the Center for Victims of Torture, I experience this every day as we seek to rebuild the lives of survivors of torture. And I'm constantly reminded of the immense human rights expertise and scholarship here, which partners with human rights NGOs in the community in ways that are complementary and which strengthen each other's work to advance human rights protections. And this conference is, I think, an excellent example of that. As many of you know, the concept of transitional justice is a relatively new one. The idea of accountability for human rights crimes was largely unthinkable in modern politics, even after the Nuremberg and Tokyo tribunals. The focus of global politics showed little interest in any kind of accountability, even for the worst atrocities. But things began to change slowly. Things changed with the trials in the mid-1970s in Greece and Portugal, which tried their own state officials for human rights violations during previous authoritarian regimes. Things changed in the mid-1980s when Argentina held its own renowned trials of its top military leaders for their human rights violations in the Dirty War. Things changed with the advent of truth commissions. The first domestic commissions of inquiry began to appear in the mid-1980s. Democratic inquiries, domestic inquiries, carried out by the governments of countries such as Argentina, Uganda, and Uruguay, which had transitioned away from previous repressive regimes. The idea of transitional justice grew out of the experience of these early adopters. And the category of transitional justice is now used to explain different measures used by societies to address legacies of human rights abuses, mass atrocities, and other forms of severe social trauma. And the goal of these measures is to guarantee non-recurrence and to build a more democratic, just, and peaceful future. This conference over the next 2 days will focus on the case studies of transitional justice in 2 countries which have had particular transitional justice experiences with global significance: the truth commissions and trials, of course, in El Salvador and Guatemala. And this conference will consider, now with the benefit of 25 years of hindsight, the impacts of these processes, both on the life of the countries themselves and on the broader international community. And to help frame this discussion, we are truly lucky to have one of the foremost global experts on accountability for human rights violations, Pablo De Greve, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the promotion of truth, justice, reparation, and guarantees of non-recurrence. He has served in that position since his election by the Human Rights Council in 2012. As Special Rapporteur, Mr. De Greve deals with situations in which there have been widespread violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. He was selected for this important mandate based on the depth of his experience working with different transitional justice bodies across the world. In particular, Pablo De Greve served as research director for an international NGO called the International Center for Transitional Justice, ICTJ as it's known, from 2001 until 2014, where he was responsible for groundbreaking projects in countries around the world. His writings became reference works in the field, including the Handbook of Reparations, Transitional Justice and Development, Making Connections, and Disarming the Past, Transitional Justice and Ex-Combatants. His work on a holistic or comprehensive conception of transitional justice was foundational for the field as a whole. Mr. De Greve is both a human rights activist and a scholar. He was born in Bogota and is currently a senior fellow at the Center for Human Rights and Global Justice at New York University School of Law. Earlier in his career, De Greve was a tenured associate professor in the philosophy department at the State University of New York at Buffalo, where he taught ethics and political theory. He was also the Lawrence Rockefeller Fellow at the Center for Human Values at Princeton and held a concurrent fellowship from the National Endowment for the Humanities. As special rapporteur, De Greve has presented many thematic reports to the United Nations Human Rights Council and to the General Assembly, and carried out 6 country visits to Tunisia, Uruguay, Spain, the UK and Northern Ireland, Burundi, and just last month to Sri Lanka. Please join me now in giving a warm welcome to Pablo De Greve.